If only it was that easy. Before I get into it, I just want to give a content warning on this video. It's boring. Please only watch this if you're a nerd who thinks it's cool to be able to save tiny fractions of a second when turning around sometimes in a video game, like me. Okay, so first of all, if you're here for the frame data, check the video description. Otherwise, here's the explanation. It's a common thing to have to turn around in Ocarina of Time, since walking backwards is a strong movement option in many scenarios. To start a backwalk, you have to turn around, lock your camera with target, and then move opposite Link's facing direction. But not all backwalk beginnings are made equal, and different kinds can be better or worse depending on the situation. The main scenarios I tested here are turning around from standing still or from moving forward, with the latter divided into two subcases, running forward and rolling forward. For each of those scenarios, I tested 4 different kinds of turnarounds: a standard backwalk, a diagonal backwalk, a quick turn, and inverted camera. And I tested those 4 turnarounds both as child and adult Link. All told, this gives 24 different scenarios. I'll go through enough of them to make the results clear, and again, the rest is in the description. So first up, let's figure out what's the best way to turn around and backwalk when standing still. We'll use a standard backwalk as our benchmark point, and compare the other 3 turnaround types based on how much distance Link covers in 20 frames, or 1 second, which is enough to encompass all the differences because Link will have fully accelerated into his backwalk by then in all scenarios. A standard backwalk is the simplest one, and it's the benchmark because it's the one people will use the most when speedrunning. To do it optimally, you just turn Link, which takes 1 frame when standing still, press and hold Z 1 frame later to lock the camera, and then hold down, anytime between 0 and 3 frames after Z. Link will begin accelerating into his backwalk. The 2 numbers on screen are Link's Z coordinate and his horizontal speed. In all scenarios, I'll only be moving along the Z axis so that the numbers remain easy to use and understand. On the 20th frame, we can see Link has traveled 157.875 units. Next is the diagonal backwalk. This one is the most complicated to perform optimally. If we look at the regular backwalk again, we can see it takes Link 7 frames to begin moving backwards when holding straight down. If you instead hold diagonally down, anywhere between 0 and 2 frames after targeting, Link will initiate a sidewalk animation, which will allow him to begin accelerating 1 frame sooner than a backwalk would. Ideally, on the 2nd frame of having sidewalk speed, though 3rd frame isn't far behind, you can smoothly transition into holding straight down for a backwalk and have traveled a little bit further. There are 2 major issues with this, though. The first is that depending on which way the camera turns when you target, you would want to use one diagonal versus the other, and in many situations it will be very hard to plan that. Also, the closer you are to holding straight down while still counting as diagonal, the better. So just holding in the down right or down left notches isn't very good. The optimal position to hold is 11 lateral magnitude, and you lose travel distance the further out you go from there. It isn't very hard to gain some distance with this strat, but it's quite tricky to be optimal with it. In all the future scenarios showing this diagonal backwalk, I'll show the optimal execution of it only for the strongest comparison. Here you can see Link has traveled 170.114 units, or about 12.24 units further than a standard backwalk. Next is the quick turn. This trick skips the frame-by-frame rotation of the camera and flips it all in one go, with some overhead involved for preparing it. To do it optimally while standing still, you tap target for 1 frame, hold down for the backwalk on the next frame, and 2 frames later, press and hold target again. Link will accelerate into the backwalk 1 frame sooner relative to beginning to holding down. However, we spent a frame targeting before holding down, so overall, this one works out to be equivalent to the standard backwalk. It's also clearly harder to do, so you wouldn't use this very often. But there are certain situations where it may be a good option because it also straightens the camera. After a door opening animation, for example, the camera is often a bit diagonal to Link, so pressing straight down for an immediate backwalk might not send you where you want to go. But with the quick turn, you get to straighten out without having to hold any precise slight diagonals on the analog stick. Last is inverted camera. This trick avoids flipping the camera at all, instead inverting its relationship to Link so that you can see where you're going while you backwalk. To do it from standing still, hold target for 3 frames, press down for 2 frames, and then press and hold target and up to begin backwalking. With this strat, it takes Link much less time to begin accelerating backwards after beginning to hold in that direction, but the overhead cost is too great. Overall, it takes him 2 frames longer to begin moving, and Link only ends up traveling 133.125 units, 24.75 units less than the standard backwalk. At his maximum backwalk speed, Child Link travels 12.375 units per frame. Using this number, we can convert these distance differentials then into frame differentials. We see that diagonal backwalks save 0.99 frames, quick turns save 0 frames, and inverted cam loses 2 frames compared to the standard backwalk. But what does 0.99 frames really mean? Well, it means that the extra distance covered from the diagonal backwalk is 99% of the distance covered in 1 frame of backwalking. So, does it save time or not? Well, it depends on the spacing between you and the place you need to get to. You can think of fractional frames as a percent chance of saving an extra frame or not. Saving 0.99 frames means that you will save 1 frame in 99% of situations and 0 frames in 1% of situations, depending on the exact distance you need to travel. Next up, we'll talk about beginning a backwalk while already running forward instead of standing still. This changes things quite a bit, and I'll assume the camera is already straight to the direction we want to travel here. First, to do a standard backwalk, we have to hold down for 2 frames to turn around, press and hold Z, and continue to hold down. Note that it takes an extra frame of holding down to turn around here versus doing it from standing still. 1 frame to kill Link's forward speed, and then 1 to actually turn. After 20 frames, we can see that we've traveled 153.75 units, interestingly a little bit less than what we traveled when starting from standing still. We essentially traded 1 frame of backwalking at the end for 1 frame of walking forward at the beginning, and since walking is slower than backwalking, we didn't go as far in total. Next is the diagonal backwalk, performed identically to last time except for the extra turnaround frame needed at the start again. Here we've traveled 165.989 units, or 12.24 units further than the standard backwalk. Next is the quick turn. Tap Z for 1 frame, then either on the same frame or 1 frame later, hold down until Link turns 3 frames after Z, and then press Z and continue to hold down for the backwalk. We travel 170.25 units, 16.5 units more than the standard backwalk, the best difference yet. Last is inverted cam. Press Z for 2 frames while continuing to run forward, then release Z and hold down for 3 frames to turn around, then press and hold Z and up to backwalk. We travel 166.125 units, 12.375 units more than the standard backwalk. After converting, the results here are that diagonal backwalks again save 0.99 frames, quick turns are the best option at 1.33 frames saved, meaning there's actually a 33% chance to save 2 frames here, and inverted cam saves 1 frame. Personally, I like the inverted cam option here because being able to see where you're going can often help you end the backwalk more exactly where you intend, which can save further time in a practical sense. The last thing to talk about is starting a backwalk out of the end of a roll. This situation will come up very often, but doing anything other than a standard backwalk here is a pretty advanced option, due to the timing needed to do inputs during the tail end of the roll. For the standard backwalk, you hold forward until the frame or the frame after Link's feet make a pattering sound at the end of the roll, and then switch to down to turn 2 frames after the sound. Press Z the frame after to backwalk, and Link will travel 169.125 units. The diagonal backwalk is exactly the same as the standard, except with the diagonal input explained earlier after pressing Z to backwalk. Done perfectly, you'll travel 181.362 units, 12.24 units further than the standard backwalk. For the quick turn, you want to tap Z for 1 frame on the frame before the feet sound, while also continuing to hold up. Then you hold down for 2 frames, beginning on the feet frame, then add Z again for the backwalk. If you nail it, you'll travel 194.25 units, 25.125 more than the standard backwalk. And again, last is inverted cam. It's the same input pattern as when walking forward, and it begins 3 frames before the feet sound. 2 frames target while continuing to hold forward, then 3 frames of down, then target again and hold up for the backwalk. You'll travel 190.5 units, 21.375 more than the standard backwalk. We'll convert to frames one more time, and diagonal backwalks again save 0.99 frames. Quick turns are again the best, except this time saving 2.03 frames, and inverted cam saves 1.73 frames. I'm not going to go through the data for Adult Link in this video, but the rankings of what is best in each situation is exactly the same, and how much you'll save in each situation is either the same or even better than it is as child. So why are quick turns and inverted cams such strong options to begin a backwalk while moving forward? Well, both strategies spend some overhead time doing trickery with the Z button so that later Link begins backwalking sooner relative to the analog input. When standing still, that overhead is just wasted time, and the subsequent benefit doesn't outweigh it. However, when rolling, Link can continue to move forward during that roll while you perform those special inputs, leading to pure benefit on the other side. When you're running forward, though, the answer is different. When you press the Z button, any running speed Link had will be preserved for 2 frames, regardless of your analog stick input during those frames. In fact, if you press target every other frame, you can maintain your speed forever while completely letting go of the analog stick. When it's chained like this, we call it a Zslide, but it happens with single Z presses too. So since both quick turns and inverted cams preface the turnaround with a Z press, it allows us to preserve some of that forward running speed while turning around, whereas simply turning around will immediately halt your speed. And that's it. That's all I got. You now know more things about turning around in Ocarina of Time than most people know about literally anything. Enjoy it, be proud of it, and go outside. See ya.